He is from the community. Very rarely do we get speakers that come in and actually gain the attention the moment that they walk into the room. And I think his mixture of using both music and storytelling was a very good way of grabbing students of our generation's attention. Being a teacher as long as I have, I mean, I've learned to always value the perspectives of others, but it's always good to hear someone else's story and, you know, where they come from, where they wanted to go, and where they ended up being. And I thought David's story was very unique in that he's found his calling. I thought the mixture of both music and storytelling in relationship to how to build his message was very positive for the kids. I absolutely would love to see David come back. I mean, he seems to be a very active member in our community. He related well with the students, and after the assembly, we did have a large number of students who asked if he would be returning to do any other type of activities for our children here. Wow, he really related to us well. I was shocked that he knew, you know, parts of our community and that he actually grew up in areas where we grew up. The whole idea of students using social media and all this use of phones and whatnot, we've kind of lost the personal connection of just talking to one another. And I think David seems like a very open person to engage those conversations within the community and possibly break barriers of trust that have not been able to be broken up to this point. It's just the way that he has reached out and connected. I think he is very open, he seems very personable, and knows that his story are very similar to a lot of the students in our community. I think one of the biggest voids that a lot of our kids have are positive role models. Somebody that they can look up to, somebody that they can, you know, emulate, somebody that might not be on television or might be in their own household. And Dave kind of serves as a sort of a good platform for others to view and strive to be. Building trust, building friendships, you know, as I mentioned before, not having positive role models and you know, having people that you can rely on. When I was in middle school, I always looked at adults as, you know, something that I wanted to aspire to be, but always had a hard time relating with them. Where when David was in the building, even for the short time that he was in for his assembly, the connections that he made and the way that he had the audience made you believe that he was able to connect with them on a different level than most teachers even in the building.
Cool. Can you just spit that?
And David really connects with kids on a different level. I think his style and the way he presents allows kids to feel a little bit more open, and they would probably more likely share things with him that they wouldn't share with most teachers in the building.
It was a phenomenal experience. David came in and talked to our kids and delivered his message about how he grew up and you know, motivating them to work hard toward their dreams and make good decisions. And they were really proud that we had a motivational speaker come into our school and deliver a powerful message. And it was nice, again, to see that you can make it out of this area and do something with your life despite a difficult upbringing. I'm noticing kids are more open to talk because I told them a little bit about my story, how it's somewhat similar, not as intense as Dave's story. And Dave's story was very emotional. And some of the kids, I think they've been more open to talk to me about, you know, situations that are occurring in their lives. And it kind of, in a strange way, Dave's message and my message to my kids kind of opened up a relationship a little bit more with my students, towards, you know, motivating them, wanting to do better. Some of my kids are telling me, you know, I want to make sure that I'm being successful, and, you know, I like music. I want to pursue music like he did, and things like that, you know. And like I said, he was extremely relatable to the kids, and his ability to speak to the kids like one of their own. I thought he did a really good job with that, and I just think his message just really resonates with our community a lot.
Awesome.
I think every kid needs someone to believe in them for them to be successful. We need that support system. And I love how David talked about that. And I had that similar experience in high school where I had coaches and teachers that believed in me.
Awesome.
Things like that. But for me, the hardest thing in middle school was just fitting in, trying to figure out what peer group you need to be involved with. Did I want to be an athlete? Did I want to be with the smart group of kids? I mean, middle school is all about cliques and figuring out who you are. And for me, it was all about my identity and who I was going to be. And I made a lot of poor decisions in middle school that I can reflect and look back on now. That's a lot of the reason why I want to teach middle school, is to help these kids make strong decisions and have a foundation for life. A lot of these kids have, they have a hopeless feeling. They think, I come from a situation that's difficult, I'm never going to make it, and they lose confidence in themselves. But when you see someone like Dave, who came from all this, I mean, it was a very emotional story, and he's so positive. And the thing about Dave that I like the most is his positivity, and that he's doing stuff with his life. I think that's extremely motivating for kids to know that there is somebody that can do that, and they're here, and they went through our community.
Recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think he's such a positive human being, and I think anybody can benefit from being in a room with Dave. His positivity is contagious. And again, the fact that he has a rags to riches story, that resonates with anybody. I don't care where he came from. There's a reason why Rocky Balboa is one of the most famous movie franchises of all time, because that's what it is, right? Rags to riches. So when a guy, and I'm not saying Dave is rich, but he's rich in life. You can see that. And I think, a guy like that went from that came to there, it would resonate with any school district in the area.
Well, if I had to put one word on it, I have to say it was powerful. It was meaningful. The children, the students, I thought were really engaged. Really enjoyed not just the message in song that David gave, but also the general message that he gave during that assembly was one of being positive and treating others as you would want to be treated. And I thought it was a phenomenal presentation. Would you hear that, when I have choices in my life, and that was part of Dave's message about making good choices. And I think the message definitely stuck with the children. Right after that assembly, we must have spent at least a half hour in that next class just talking about David's message and the impact it had on them. Things like I had some students talk about, that they had been bullied, or maybe they were even a bully at one point in their life, and how they wanted to, change that and treat other people, better, and just be kind to one another. And I spent, like I said, that whole next half hour just talking about it with the kids, and I mean, since then there are times when there are messages that come up, and I'll say, hey, remember when we had that assembly, and this, Mr. Charles talked about this, and so forth. And so it definitely had a great impact on my students in my class, for sure.
Awesome.
The statistics now, there are so many children that are growing up with no mother in the home or no father in the home, and we as teachers, and I consider David to be a teacher too. We're all mentors, and I would hope that he could maybe even have like a group of, whether it's 4 or 5 individuals, or maybe even one-on-one with some of the kids who really need that mentoring. David brings a lot of enthusiasm, creativity. I'd have to say creativity, enthusiasm were 2 of the things that stuck out to me, because he is a singer, so he has written songs, and I really think that the kids were just impacted by how enthusiastic he was about his message. There's a difference when somebody gives you a message, but they don't seem convinced in giving that message. David is 100% convinced and enthusiastic about the message he's trying to give to these young people today. David I can tell he has a good spirit about him, and he has a real love for children, and his message is one that impacts not just the children that are there, but it also impacted me as an adult there, and I can see that he really has a love just for people, and I could sit and listen to David all day. It was a great assembly, and
I really enjoyed it, and I really connected with it, because a lot of the things that he's been through, and some of the things that he talked about, I can really relate to, so it really touched me.
What was your favorite part of the assembly?
Just kind of about being yourself and not being afraid of who you are, and you don't really have to worry about what other people say.
You're doing awesome.
There's not many other people that go through the same kind of things, so knowing that he's there, it made me feel special. I would be really excited if Dave had another assembly. That would be absolutely awesome. Lunch period, and we'll just go around and talk to kids and kind of see how they're doing, and just try and talk to them. And so, every single time he comes, I get a chance to talk to him and say hi. And he's just really supportive, and he just kind of lets me know that he's there for me and that I'm not alone. Get it off their chest. I know a lot of kids kind of keep a lot of things bottled up inside, and that kind of hurts you instead of helps you, because in the end it's going to lead to something way bigger. So tutoring and counseling and just kind of having someone there to talk to, I think, would help.
Yeah.
David Charles, his assembly was just inspiring. It was super amazing, and just like it shows how much you can grow as a person. Being rude and disrespectful, giving attitude to people for no reason, it kind of made me think of like how I could be a better person. Extremely inspiring. Where like some teachers can't, relate, because, it has a lot of personal parts of his life that, may be happening to some of the kids. To them personally, I think it really inspired them too, to go ahead and actually change maybe a little bit. I would absolutely love to see Mr. Charles come back. Yeah, Mr. Charles, he does. He loves to go around the lunchroom and just talk to kids, and I think it honestly does work, because so many kids love him here. Like, seriously, he's such an amazing man. I think he honestly calms kids down. He asks them how they're feeling, how they're doing, like if everything's going okay. He really does help out, I feel. He's always super positive, and kids love that. Like, there's never really not a negative moment when talking to him. He's always keeping it super positive, and I think he can relate to a lot of the things that, the kids have been going through, because, his personal story, like from when he was younger to now, I just think he understands a lot more, and he can talk and communicate a lot better than most adults can.
Do you feel like he's kind of gone through some of this?
He can connect with those types of kids, like, because he's personally gone through it. He knows everything he knows everything, like the kids that are going through, you know what I mean? Like, he can feel that. He's felt it before, that they're not the only ones going through that pain. Like, other people have been through that, and they can get through it and still be amazing people. They can listen to the story. They can relate to some things. I think they feel better overall doing that. After the assembly, me and a couple friends actually were talking about how impacting it was, like how inspirational it was, and how we feel like we should do better now. It honestly inspired a lot of kids, I feel. He inspired me, my friends, and we were just talking about how how amazing he is, and how you can really grow as a person, like from not having such a great life to having an absolutely amazing life, or not absolutely amazing, but
so this energy, I don't think anyone matches his energy. Dave is very energetic, but at the same time, the content and information that he gave that day was just awesome. It was something that kids needed to hear. It was personal for him, but at the same time, it was something I believe that the kids were able to draw positivity from. With the kids, he literally put himself out there so that they can know who he is and where he came from. As educators, we were able to draw from the things he was talking about to use as examples to our kids. And so we were able to draw from those experiences that Dave was able to share. And by doing that, we're able to give them, that real life experience. Dave went through this, you don't want to go through, whatever it was. So I think we're able to, no doubt, draw from it. And then he's here, on a periodic basis, talking to them face to face. So those things worked out. I think David was able to interact with the kids, and he was able to engage with them and also have them respond. I think mainly because they feel like he comes from a place that they come from, comes from the same place. Also, the fact that he displayed his struggles out there for them to hear, it kind of gave them something to identify with. And a lot of times you don't get that from your teachers. Your teachers don't normally tell you of their struggles and things like that. You just know them as Mr. or Mrs. whomever. but David was David that day, and I think they drew a lot from that, and they can, from now on.
That's good.
David's spirit connected with me more than anything else. But the spirit that he has, that spirit of, I want to do something great for this community. He's all about community, which is awesome. Those things touch me more, and I can identify with him with that. So if he ever had to go through a fire, I'd be one of the ones to run through it with him. He's just that type of guy. But the kids need it. These kids are really struggling. They really need something positive to draw from. And I think David's well is something, they can really draw from. So I would love to see him come back. And when he's in the cafeteria with the kids, it's something great that, I think they love it. We walk down and we can see him in there going from table to table, talking to kids. And some of the kids, you can see they can't wait until he comes their way so they can pull him. They're raising their hands. And, he's even, telling some kids, I'll be there in a second. Give me 1 second. And even some of the kids that, are kind of introvertish and, don't want to, they're not out of their shell. He kind of pulls them out, and that's the great thing about him. They love his hair, so it's always the guy with the hair. Where's the guy with the hair, the wild hair? So I think it's very positive that he is here, and he should continue to do so.
Okay, so this one.
When I was middle school age, I think the biggest thing for me at that time was I grew up without my father, and I am a junior. I have his name. And that was big for me. Where I grew up in Norristown, there was a lot of kids like me, but there were few that, had the father and mother at home. And it kind of made me feel like I was missing something. So I was on a search at that time to find out who my real father was. I imagined what he would be, like, and, what his job was. Those things were big for me during his middle school age. Sports was huge. But there was a lot of struggles that I struggled with because my father wasn't in my life at that time. It wasn't until later that we were able to reunite. Being fatherless was huge. Also, poverty was big. 8 children, one parent, just her mom, and she worked 2 jobs. That was a struggle. And I'm the third to the oldest, and we had to make sure the younger brothers and sisters did homework and ate. That fell hard on us. So I had to grow up fast. And being a child, you kind of lose out on some childhood things. And, I don't fault my mom. She was great. But, you had to grow up a little fast, in my day. I really believe that, especially young men, they really need that male presence in their life to teach them what it's like to be a young man. Again, we grew up with just a mom, basically. There were male role models, which I'm so glad for, so thankful for. But no one can teach you how to be a man, like an honest man, like a true man. They give you pointers, they give you tips, they give you, encouragement when you need it. That presence is so important. It's one of the things that I think is robbing, communities like the community we live in, is that the fathers aren't there. So the mothers, they do the best that they can, God bless their hearts. But these young men, they grow up not knowing how to respect women, not knowing how to treat them, not knowing how to be, honest or positive, not knowing how to work hard. And I think that's something that a father can bring. Not to say mothers can't help there, but I don't think no one can do that like a father can. I absolutely believe that having a mentor program in this area, in this school, would benefit these kids greatly. I mean, they would no doubt grow from it. I think it would absolutely take time. They'd have to get used to it. As a basketball coach here at the high school, I can see how they gravitate to my voice. And when I get to know them personally, I find out that there is no father at home for most of them. So they gravitate to me. They text me all night long, about the smallest things. And sometimes I'm like, hey, I have a family, stop texting. But I realize what they're doing. So a good mentoring program, with male leads, female leads as well, just something that these kids can look at. I think it would absolutely benefit these kids. If we had to speak about shortcomings at this school, I don't know. I think that the leaders, the mentors that are here, the teachers, I think we have to take more of a proactive approach with the kids instead of just focusing on the A, B's, and C's, of why they're here. I think just being proactive, getting a little bit more personal, understanding what they're coming from when they come in here and why they're disruptive. I think it would actually absolutely change the game. It would help them out greatly. I think fundamental, basic necessity type mentoring is absolutely needed. I mean, down to the fundamentals like how to brush your teeth right, how to comb your hair, how to dress, how to fix your clothing, how to be presentable. Those are some of the things that I learned when I was young and took pride in, and it absolutely takes you far. And when you see some of the kids, your heart breaks because no one is there telling them these things. They're not telling them how important it is to be presentable, to make sure that, your breath is smelling nice. And to us, it might be a small thing, but to them it's huge because no one told them about these things. No one is teaching them these things. So a basic necessity mentoring program is absolutely needed, and they would benefit from. I think the community would actually be a salvation for these kids. When we were growing up, we heard a term, and I still live by it today, and that is, it takes a village to raise a child. When we grew up, I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, your neighbors were an extension of your parents. You got in trouble, they told on you. You got in trouble, your parents got you, your neighbors got you. You respected them, you knew their name, Miss Mandy, Mr. Edward, and you spoke to them like that. I think if the community got back or got back in their place and was involved in these kids' lives in a positive way, it would absolutely help these kids out a whole lot. Is like a ground zero approach. Teaching them respect for your elders was one of the things that I didn't mention but was huge for us. Everybody was called Mr. or Miss. It was yes, sir, it was no, ma'am. And that may seem a little corny to the generation, but it was huge for us. And even to this day, they don't even have to be older than I am. They just have to be in a position of authority, and I call them yes, sir, or no, ma'am, or no, sir, no, ma'am. I think that ground zero approach would be the first thing that the community would have to reestablish with these kids to make some positive changes. If any mentor that comes in here and starts a program, I think it would change their life. It would absolutely change their life. Because you're coming in to get personal with these kids, to find out where they come from, what their background is like, what do they go through on a daily basis, so that we can understand how to help them. I think their hearts would melt hearing the testimonies, hearing the stories these kids, go through every day. I don't think that we fully know, everything that they go through. I think we know some things, we know a little bit about their, parental background or whatever, but I don't think that we know everything that they go through, from whatever time they get up in the morning to whatever time they go to bed at night. Some don't go to bed. Some, are sleeping around at friends' houses, because their homes aren't comfortable. So we don't truly know exactly what they're going through. We can derive points, or we can, just say certain things, but I don't think we really know. So I think any mentor that comes in here would absolutely have their heart melted by the kid.
He rallied the kids, got them thinking positively about themselves and about their community. He really wanted to show them that he grew up in a very similar way in the neighborhood, and he experienced a lot of the things that the kids experience every day. And in doing so, I think he was able to relate to them and get their trust and show them that, there's things that are more important outside and there's better things out there, and, to kind of strive for those things and make good decisions. He was very real in his assembly, and that was really helpful for the kids to see, because then they took him a little bit more seriously. I think the language that he used was very real, so when David Charles was speaking to the kids, they could really understand that. I think one of his most important things that he relayed in his assembly was that a lot of times kids don't have trust for adults, and that they very much got used to people leaving their lives and not being around and not staying around, which is why a lot of our kids here struggle with developing relationships with adults. There seems to be this divide between, kids and authority, and they see it as, quite a negative relationship. But in coming in and showing that he's a face in the community, he's an adult, and that he's here and he comes back again and again, it builds that trust, and kids need that. I think at our school a mentoring program would be significant for them. Personally, my first year at Pottstown was last year, and meeting my students for the first time, they were very closed off. And throughout the year, I coached 3 sports. I coached cheerleading for 2 seasons, and I coached track. And it was significant, the difference that this year made when I met kids who already knew me, and they knew that I was a face in the community, and they knew that I was a coach, and they saw me as a different person than just a teacher. So I think having people come in who are those different mentors that aren't just authority figures or aren't just teachers or principals, that community relation is really helpful here. I think getting people in the community to be involved in the lives of the students would have a great impact on them. Personally, I've been working the after-school program, and I see some students that I wouldn't regularly see teaching 8th grade. I see some 5th graders, and one 5th grader in particular was having a really rough time, and I just said, hey, you want to go for a walk with me? And he did, and ever since then, every time I see him, he comes up to me and gives me a big hug, and I became that person for him. And he doesn't even look at me as a teacher, but if you had other people who came in and built those same kind of bonds or those relationships with them, then they would without a doubt see that person as a figure in their life that's positive.
David's Building Trust Assembly was very engaging for our students. It helped them connect with someone who had a similar background as they have, someone who grew up in the Pottstown community, and someone who has gone on to be a mentor for others, but also experience things in life that maybe he didn't believe he was going to be able to do when he was in their seat sitting in this middle school. David just initially connecting with our students and telling them, showing them pictures of the area where he grew up, and students were very shocked and very surprised. I think the Building Trust Assembly was very helpful to our students and our staff, as well as myself. It helped us to think about the tribulations, trials and tribulations that we face each and every day with our kids, and helping to support our students and help them feel confident and trust in themselves to be a better individual. It was powerful, it was motivating, it was inspiring, and it helped our students have a sense of belief and belonging in the community. I think David's able to connect with our kids on a more personal level for a variety of reasons. Number one, he's a community member, and he's able to come in and connect with our kids without the expectation for instruction or academics that some of our teachers have. As a principal, I would recommend Dave to do a presentation at another school for a variety of reasons. He connects well with students. He has a ton of energy, very positive, very motivating, and very inspirational. And the students leave that auditorium with a very uplifting message and a very positive message going forward. I think the biggest thing for students when they left the assembly, or when they would leave an assembly with David, is that sense of pride, that sense of accomplishment, that sense of, I can be a better person, I can do better, and I can follow my dreams, and I can push myself to be a better individual, and I am created for greatness. The way David approaches connecting with kids outside of the assembly has been extremely beneficial for us. A lot of times you have a presenter that will come in and do an assembly, and that's the last time you see them. David's been back in our building. He's been back. He's been in the cafeteria. He's been in the classrooms. He's been able to connect with kids inside the building, outside of the building. And that has been extremely beneficial for our students to understand how important his message was and is, and how much he values them believing in themselves and continuing to listen to his message and move forward in that belief that they are created for greatness. I believe mentoring has a positive impact with our students from the standpoint of it gives them another individual in their lives that can help them make some tough decisions, or help them work through this developmental time in their life. They have parents, they have teachers, and those individuals, if they have them, can fill a great void in their life. But if they don't, the mentor can step in either as in addition to those teachers and parents, or in supplement of those individuals, and help those students to think through and problem solve and recognize their abilities and grow as individuals. We have a lot of situations where students struggle in school, out of school. They struggle with friendships. They struggle with a focus on academics. They struggle with making great decisions for the betterment of themselves. And I think mentors with our students can just help guide them, help them to frame their mindset and make those proper decisions in seeing the long term. A middle school student often only sees the very short term. A middle school student often only sees the very short-term decisions, and they don't see the long-term effects of their decisions. And a mentor can help mold them and shape them and make those decisions in seeing the long-term effects of those decisions. One of those areas would be just in student discipline and making sure that students are making choices that are representative of our building and our students and our population. And our students don't always do that, and we want to continue to encourage them. They are middle school students. They are developing. They're making choices that will impact them. We want to make sure those choices are positive choices that will lead to positive effects in the future. We have a great opportunity for other adults in this community to get involved with Pottstown Middle School. That can be through mentoring, it can be through sharing any talents or trades that you might have with our students. just giving our students the opportunity to learn and grow from others in the community. Our school is not going to be successful without the investment of our community members, and having community members come into our building and share with our students and helping our students grow and make positive decisions is what we need and what we want as a middle school. I'm in my second year in this position, and when I first stepped into this position, one of the things I very quickly realized is that our students are very relational. And they open up and they connect with you once you build and establish that relationship with them. And that can be very rewarding. But can also be very beneficial for our students to help them grow and make positive decisions. And I think a mentor coming into our building can help connect with our students, build those relationships, and help our students in a positive manner by helping them make positive decisions for their lives. So feedback that we've received from students after the assembly, where they were very excited. They loved seeing David. They loved the connection that he has to Pottstown, and they love the fact that he keeps coming back. And they loved his message, Created for Greatness. And I hear a lot of students that still resonate with that message and still will go up to David when he's in the building and say, hey, I remember when you said this, and I'm continuing to work towards that Created for Greatness in my own life. So one of the components of David's assembly was his music, and that was one of the best ways that he was able to connect with our students. It was a great avenue, a great vehicle. Students are very interested in music and the arts, and that was a great way for them to connect with David and see him as an individual. We've had so many students that have gone up to him after the assembly or have come and asked me, how can they get more connected with David and more connected with music and help them grow as individuals through the use of music. I think David is able to connect with our students on a deeper level because he's gone through what they're going through, because he has dealt with some of the things that they deal with day in and day out. He's open and honest with them, and he relates to struggles that they might have going on in their lives right now, and he's been through it and he's come out on the other side. So the students being able to see that, recognize that, and really reflect on who David is as an individual allows them to connect on a deeper level.